everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy. This is Dave.
Hola.
And today the topic is the top 3 forgotten Southern rock bands. So this was a very difficult subject for me because I'm thinking, okay, are they forgotten because I forgot them, or are they forgotten because other people forgot them and maybe I still listen to these bands? I
think they're, it's about bands that maybe had a heyday and then just dropped off and no one remembers them. And I mean, there's a lot of great, and especially in the 70s. I mean, there were so many Southern rock bands that were around, and Southern rock was, one of the predominant styles of music back in the day.
Yeah.
But a lot of them came up, a lot of them went away.
So I have a feeling your picks are going to be totally different than mine. But
Probably.
So let's get started. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Mother's Finest.
Well, that's a band I have never heard of.
Yeah, they were really popular. I think they were out of Atlanta, but they're really popular on the East Coast. They were pretty much a soul, rock, funk kind of band. They had a scorching, white guy on guitar, maybe a white drummer or whatever, but had a chick singing and a lead bass player singing, and yeah, they had a lot of great songs like Piece of the Rock. Mickey's Monkey. Probably the biggest song was called Baby Love. But if you lived in the Carolinas in the 70s, they were on the radio. I mean, back then, the radio would play all kinds of great music.
Yeah.
AOR stations. Mother's Finest is, one of those bands that just broke through for a while, and then I think they had a couple albums, 3 albums that hit hard and then faded. I don't even know if they're still around anymore.
Yeah.
They may still be. I don't know if anyone died or anything like that, but man, they were. Even the white boys could dig that band, man, because
really?
they were rocking, man. I mean, they were funky. They were, I don't know what to compare them to, but Mother's Finest was definitely one of those bands that came and went.
I've never heard of that band before in my life.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I guess you will.
I know you've heard of this band because this is a band who had a huge album in 1990. It had another pretty big album after that, and then sort of, I guess, fell into some sibling rivalry and, split up for a while. But it's the Black Crowes. So when they put out that album, Shake Your Moneymaker, it sold 2 million copies and it had so many great songs on it, like Jealous Again. Hard to Handle.
Hey, little thing, let me light your candle, 'cause the mama, I'm sure hard to handle now, just around.
Man, great song.
Which I didn't really find out till recently that it was actually written and recorded by Otis Redding.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic.
Pretty little thing, let me light your candle, 'cause mama, I'm sure hard to handle now, just around.
I gotta say, Troy, I wouldn't call them forgotten because you gotta remember that the Black Crowes recorded an album with Jimmy Page.
That is true.
And
but that's somewhat of a forgotten album because I guess a lot of people don't know that album. I love that album. That's one of my favorite albums.
I think it's Jimmy Page's best live album outside of Zeppelin.
I would totally agree.
But, if you want to put them in there, that's cool because I think, no, they just regrouped and the brothers got their shit together.
Yeah.
And they're not fighting anymore.
Because the brothers hated each other.
No,
I remember listening to Howard Stern, and Chris Robinson was on there. This is probably like 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. And just the way, he talked about his relationship with his brother. And they hated each other. Like, their kids never saw each other, and then they got back together.
Yeah, it was like Oasis or all these other, Everly Brothers even.
Yeah.
I mean, they ended up like, becoming estranged from each other, but they got their shit together now and they're touring.
They're touring right now.
Yeah.
What's crazy is though, so when they finally got their shit together, this was right before COVID hit. And they planned this big tour, and then COVID hit and squashed that. But they are on tour now. I would love to see the Black Crowes. Black Crowes are a great band, and he's one of those singers too that can still sing.
Chris Robinson
he's great. Yeah. The reason I put the Black Crowes on my list is because they did have such big hits back in the day. Like I said, man, this was a hard list for me because I really couldn't think of that many songs that many bands that are forgotten. Now,
Southern rock
bands that are forgotten. Now, for the rest of the world, they're probably forgotten because they're not on MTV, they're not on the radio all the time like they used to be. But what's your number 2?
My number 2 is the Georgia Satellites.
I got a little change in my pocket going jingle-lang-lang.
Georgia Satellites were a band out of Atlanta, I believe, and they had one of the biggest hits in the 80s. Keep Your Hands to Yourself.
Oh, yeah, I love that song.
I love that song. It's a great song.
My honey, my baby, don't put my love upon no shelf. She said, don't give me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
But they also had, a couple other songs called, like Battleship Chains. They were a band that I got to see live. I talked about this previously. I saw Tom Petty on the Let Me Up, I've Had Enough tour, where they had Tom Petty and they had Georgia Satellites, had Del Fuegos. And man, freaking, Georgia Satellites were great. I mean, I love them. I love Dan Baird. I've got some of his stuff after the Georgia Satellites split up, but Georgia Satellites were just a great Southern rock band that kind of one and done. They had that album, and then I think they had a follow-up album that never really took off, but that's my number 2.
That's a good number 2. And you know what? I forgot about that band. And maybe that's why they made your forgotten list.
Yeah, for sure.
So my number 2 is Corrosion of Conformity. They're Southern groove, sort of stoner rock band. Yeah, they're actually from North Carolina.
Are they?
They were formed in 1982. They had a different singer at that time. Pepper Keenan, who's the singer now for Corrosion, he joined in '89, but he played guitar until they put out their album Deliverance in 1984, and then they were sort of all over MTV at that time. They had great songs like Albatross.
See, I was born alive, albatross, fly on.
Clean My Wounds.
Help me, Jesus, help me clean my wounds. He said it could heal the God.
Pepper Keenan has a unique voice for sure, and they've got some great grooves and some Sabbathy riffs. That's one of the reasons I really love Corrosion of Conformity. And then they sort of fell off the face of the earth for a while.
I didn't know they were around for that long.
They're still around now.
I didn't know they went back to the 80s, though.
Well, they were a little more, I guess, more hardcore punk. They sort of changed the style of their music in the 90s.
Okay.
But then they sort of fell off the face of the earth. They had some other albums out in the late 90s, early 2000s that didn't really do anything. So they put out an album probably, oh man, it's 15 to 20 years ago. It's called In the Arms of God. That is a monster album. The drums on that album are freaking insane. So Reed Mullen was the drummer for Corrosion of Conformity. For this one album, they had this guy Stanton Moore, who was in a kind of a funk jazz drummer, to play on this album. And if you don't listen to anything but the drums, it is amazing. He is an amazing drummer.
I always thought they're kind of almost prog, were they?
Not really. No, they're very groove, southern, sort of. You know, it's hard to describe their sound. They're very unique. I mean, they have very much Sabbathy riffs. You know.
Right.
I always loved Corrosion of Conformity, especially their early albums. But In the Arms of God was a really great album, especially the title track. But that album, I'm serious, it's so heavy that it blew the speakers in my car. And I'm not even joking. Because you crank that sucker up and those drums are just like insane. It's such a great album. I love Corrosion of Conformity. They actually split up for a while because Pepper Keenan went and played with Down. Actually, Pepper played guitar and Phil sang. And Down's got some good southern sort of rock. They're a little heavier though. You know, they're not quite Pantera, but they're sort of in between Pantera and Corrosion of Conformity. The band I used to have, Color of Darkness, we were very much inspired by Corrosion of Conformity and Black Sabbath and that sort of like groove, heavy groove sounding stuff.
Got my death the right away till gonna take you to hell. Time to make the fast getaway.
My number one is they were a session band in a music studio. You know, in Dorville, they had these like ace session guys. You know, it took them a while to get their legs and get some hits, but I think the first song that everyone heard was Dorville.
Dorville, touch a country in the city.
But they had the song Imaginary Lover. Imaginary Lover.
Never turn you down.
You know, they played at a concert that I saw. Can you guess when?
In college.
Yes. Yes, they came up to Cullowhee and they played.
God, how many bands did you see in college?
Oh,
I
man.
want to know. I want to know how many bands. You know how many bands I saw in college? Zero.
You know, I was up in a school in Western
I'm lying.
Carolina.
I saw Motley Crue in college, but go ahead.
I went to college at Western Carolina University, tucked way in the corner of North Carolina. It wasn't a big school, but for some reason, man, we got all these concerts in. You know, like we talked about Waylon. You know, I saw Jimmy Buffett and the Coral Reefer Band, and saw Little River Band. So all these bands that would come through, and Rosington Collins Band, they were a great band. I mean, these guys were all like these premier musicians that they played behind a lot of, you know, big bands and stuff like that. They had a song called Spooky, which was a cover song.
In the cool of the evening when everything's getting kind of groovy.
But then they had that song So Into You.
I am so into you. I can't think of nothing.
After that, for whatever reason, I mean, I think those were platinum albums. I think the album prior to that and the Champagne Jam were both platinum albums, but then they just disappeared.
Well, you know what? I don't think I was too young to even know. I don't know if I know those songs. I guess when I edit this and you send me the
Yeah.
video links, maybe it'll refresh my memory. But the three.
I think a lot of
bands-
the songs are still on like some of those serious channels
Yeah.
that are, not hard rocking channels, but maybe yacht rock
Yeah, I was
channels or
gonna say
some,
yacht
some of
rock, yeah.
those. But they were like a real smooth band. Great vocals, great guitars, great instrumentation, and they kind of
Fell off the face
they
of the
kind
world.
of peaked.
Yeah.
They peaked in like a 4-year period.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
anyways, what's your number one?
Well, my number one is a band from Austin, Texas. I don't know if you've heard of them. They, in the late 90s, they had a song that was, it got some radio airplay, but it's a band called Vallejo.
I've seen Vallejo.
Have you really?
I saw him in Waco at Treff's.
Holy shit, I almost went to that show. No, they played a couple of times in Waco, and I never got to go see them play.
I was totally blown away because
Yeah.
two brothers, right?
Three brothers.
Three brothers.
So it's two brothers that are twins, AJ and Alex, and then you have a younger brother, Omar. And they're
Yes.
basically the core of the band, and I think that they've had different other musicians play with them throughout the years. I discovered this band, I guess in '97, Q102, the radio station in Dallas.
Of course.
They would put out these sort of like new rock compilation CDs.
Sure.
And Trey, my brother, had the CD. I don't know how he got it, but we listened to that CD, and it had another song on there that was that sort of stood out. It was have you ever heard of the band Marcy Playground?
Yes.
It has the song Sex and Candy.
Sure, yeah, Sex and Candy. You're sure.
I smell sex and candy here.
That was one of the other standout songs on that album. So this song, Just Another Day, was on that album. And I loved that song at the time.
Dude,
and,
when I saw him at Treff's, I got to tell you, it was probably 15 years ago.
Really?
At
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Me and a bunch of guys from work went. I said, hey, I've heard of these guys. They're out of Austin, man.
Yeah.
They're badass. We went and saw them, and oh, God, dog, man. The guitar playing, the musicianship, all that. I mean, we had an excellent night that night.
They're a great band. I've never seen them live. They're still playing today, and they actually put out some albums throughout the years, but they actually put out an album a few years ago called Amigos Amigos.
Bringing me down, you're tearing me out, you're killing me, you're loving me down, 'cause you drive me crazy, yeah.
Did they ever have a hit?
I think that one song was their somewhat hit. Just Another Day was their claim to fame, and then I don't think they ever really,
It's kind of a local hit.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, it was probably a local hit. I think it might have been on MTV at the back of the day. I
Right.
don't remember, to tell you the truth, but I remember loving that song. But the new album, Amigos Amigos, they have a lot of guest musicians and bands on this album. Grupo Fantasma,
Yeah.
they played at Brazos Nights years ago.
Girls on fire all night, burning the girls on fire.
Ray Benson,
Oh, yeah.
he's
Sleep
a
at the Wheel.
Yeah, he's a guest singer on the album.
He's got eyes blue as the skies of Texas.
Flaco Jimenez,
I was there at Brazos Nights for him, too.
Yeah.
Alright, Flacco. No cowboy.
So all these
He
great.
played with the Rolling Stones. Did
That's
you know
crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. The latest album, which was like I said, put out a few years ago. It's a great. I've been listening to it lately since
Yeah.
since you came up with this topic.
that? Yeah.
and I thought of this band. That's a really great album because it's not necessarily rock. It's sort of rock and like Tejano and
Well, when I
funk.
saw them that night, those little fuckers were rocking, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. You ever been to Tress when it was upstairs?
I've played at Tress.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a full house, but dudes owned it that night. I mean, they front to back, man, great show. I mean, they took a break towards the end, but man,
And they're still playing.
You could tell they were pros.
Oh, they are
Well,
pros.
they're out of Austin, but
Yeah.
they had to be pros.
Yeah, well, the three brothers. There's nobody that's going to be more in sync than three brothers
Sure.
playing music together.
yeah.
That's how it is with me and my brother when we play music together.
Yeah.
He plays drums, I play guitar. We have this sort of like connection, sort of like Eddie and Alex Van Halen. They
Sure.
have this connection when they play together.
If they're not killing each other.
Exactly. So that's our top 3 forgotten Southern rock bands. Leave your picks below. Let us know what they are. Make sure to get some of our merch. We'll leave a link below to get some of this cool stuff. And we'll see you next time in the shed.
All right. Bye-bye.